Goodwhispers, and I have a soft-spoken video tonight called The Old Lady Box, and it's mine. I started it when I was a young girl. Not just anything did I put into my old lady box, but pictures and souvenirs of all the years of my life, so that when I'm very old, I can take out the objects in the box and review them and remember. So let's take a look at some of the things in my old lady box and record this video. A picture of my parents, my mother and my father. How I have prayed for them all these years. How much I love them and miss them. For Mama died in 2004. Sometimes I think she died of a broken heart. How much I miss her. There's a picture of her mama. We called her Grandmama. Her name was Alice. In her later years, she was a ballerina. While she was still young, she married my grandfather, Harold. He was a West Point grad and a colonel. I remember the walks we all took. Every summer when school was finished for the year, it was off to Grandmama's house that I went. I took long walks with them, with grandfather in the evening, grandmother in the morning, enjoying the sunshine, gentle talk about philosophy or the news, or just be silent on our adventure in the Santa Barbara hills of California and later Westlake. It wasn't the French lessons or the dance lessons, the museum or the libraries, the circus or the zoos, or even the officers' clubs that left their greatest mark on me from my grandparents' influence. It was those walks that we took that I cherish the most. Daddy, poor Daddy, a man I never knew as father. For when I was a wee girl, he went down to the South Pole for a year. I guess Mom couldn't take the loneliness because she met a colonel in the Air Force. And she married him, and he became Daddy. But at almost sweet 16, I did meet my real father's family, and there were tons of them. I had great-grandmothers. Great-grandmother Daisy, she was born in the late 1800s, 1888, 1887. She had her kidney removed with no anesthetic or pain medication whatsoever. When she was 19, all she did was laid on a block of ice. She lost both her breast to cancer later in life, but still lived to be 92. And there was her husband, my great-grandfather Jay. He and Daisy farmed for many years and lived in an age that didn't even have ice boxes. It would be a long time before they came. They saw the first cars, the first planes, even the first moon landing. They never dreamed that they would see a man walk on the moon. I love them so. Great-grandfather Jay left this world when I was 16, and Daisy followed him when I was 22. Then there was Irene. She was a very proper, gentle lady. She taught me how to make sugar cookies, and she walked faster at her normal pace than anyone in the family. Her children, the grandchildren, or even us great-grandchildren. She had lost her twin babies in a fire when she was young, but she still lived till I was 24. She was 92. Jay was told at 40, great-grandfather Jay was told at 40 he would die of prostate cancer if he didn't have the operation, and he refused. He did die from that cancer when he was 92. He went on to live another 52 years. I will always cherish that I had great-grandparents. Daddy's parents, my real daddy, were Mary and Milo. Now, let me see if I can remember a saying from all of my great-grandparents and grandparents. Alice, grandmama, waste not, want not, or you girls get up the road, which was usually said during tea time, which we had together every day. Harold, the West Point graduate, he taught me cadences when we'd be walking along. Here's one of them from West Point. It's very old. How's the cow? She walks, she talks, she's full of chalk. The lacteal fluid extracted from the female of the bovine species is highly prolific to the 9th degree, which actually just means how much milk do we have? Daisy, my great-grandmother, lips that touch liquor shall never touch mine. As you can see, she was the president of the Women's Severance League. Jay, her husband, he was a tough guy. I remember hearing stories about before they built dams on the rivers, it would flood around their house every single year. They'd never go out in the boat, though. Until one year, when the house actually rocked on its foundations. Then, the next year, he fixed the house so he didn't have to get on the boat. But one of his sayings were, men should be able to settle their differences outside without fear of lawyers. He was a reasonable man. Now, Irene, when I was pregnant with my first child, I didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but I did manage to come up with a boy's name. When I told my great-grandmother Irene what the name of my child was to be, she whispered, that was my husband's name. The first and the middle name was exactly the same as my great-grandfather, who I hadn't heard much about and had never heard his name for some reason. And yet, what a coincidence. Now, Mary, one of her sayings was, I take pictures of everyone that comes in here. She was the x-ray tech at the State Mental Hospital. The one that Ken Kesey wrote about, to be exact. Now, Milo, one of his sayings were, never get into a boat unless you are trained in how to sail it. I guess that's pretty good advice. Now, there was one more, and I can only tell you the story about him because he died when I was small, too small to tell you anything. I do have this picture here of me sitting on his lap as a baby. He was Alice, Grandmama's father. He never flew on a plane in all his life until he was in his 90s, and he took that trip from Scotland just to see me. Oh, this tea is good. Now, there are my children, too. Lovely little pictures. I've got so many of them. 2 boys and the girl I had. They're all grown up. Many of you subscribers to my page are the age of my kids. My daughter got married and had 3 children of her own. Now, I remember when Grandmama died because I took care of her for 2 years. She had the Alzheimer's. She took her last breath in my arms. I stayed up 96 hours to be with her so she wouldn't die alone. 1 year later, after Grandmama died, I delivered my first grandchild, the circle of life, held Grandmama in my arms, and the next year I became the grandmother as I held that little baby boy in my arms. Oh, and there's my husband, my former husband. He's actually thin in this picture. He's flexing his muscles trying to look strong. But he let us down as a family. He had a lot of dysfunctions. And finally, after 5 years of putting up with him, I had to tell him, either you stop doing these things, or I'm not going to be your wife anymore forever. Well, he chose not to stop doing them. So I divorced him. That made life hard for me and the children. Now he's old and fat and lives with a woman who's suicidal. I'm still friends with him and I talk. Might as well forgive people. I told myself when I was very young I would never let myself become bitter. Now here I am in Asia on another one of my journeys, continuing to add to my adventures, and this old lady box. Well, I'll make further videos about what's in this box. Very interesting. It's tea time now.